Texas case is utterly hilarious because they've been asserting, oh, massive, massive voter fraud all across the... 12 cases in about a decade. 25 million folks there, they found 12.
Now, they found 12 cases, and unclear whether those were actually confirmed and people convicted. The reality is that there is a 0.0003% chance that you'll see vote fraud play out in elections, greater chance that you'll be struck by lightning than commit vote fraud. The state of Texas over the last 3.5 years has wasted millions of taxpayer dollars defending what is, at the end of the day, the most discriminatory voter ID law of its kind. Court after court after court has found that Texas's voter ID law discriminates against African American and Latino voters. The real data shows that there's 600,000 people who were disenfranchised the moment that they put that law in place. We are fighting this law in courts. The Justice Department has turned its back on us and is pulled out. Right now, we're at a critical point in the case where we're telling the court that this law was adopted with a discriminatory purpose. That's critical because that would render the law unconstitutional, null and void, knock it out completely, and take the wind out of the sails that we're seeing around the country to put photo ID laws in place.
Ralph, if your party gonna keep saying massive voter fraud, you might want to come up with more than 12 cases.
Oh, absolutely. And going back to the ID, I mean, I agree. You know, the college IDs, that should be an acceptable form of identification for someone to vote. Oh, excuse me.
But that gun permit is okay.
But, and I was getting ready to say that. If a gun permit is good enough ID, then a student ID, and as you have said previously, especially if you go to the state system, that's an ID that's issued by the state because it's a state university.
But it doesn't qualify under Texas's scheme.
But
Everybody knows.
I'm saying it should.
Yeah, but not the case. Texas's law is there are certain forms of ID. It is all about locking out Black folks, Latino folks, the elderly, students. Women are impacted as well.
Monique, we will have on Monday, we're going to have the Alabama Secretary of State, the one who championed the voter ID law there as well. That's going to be fun. Again, same thing here. What you have here, you have Republicans who all of a sudden, after the election of Obama in 2008, oh my goodness, voter fraud, we've got to have ID. The voter ID plan was executed after the election of Obama. This is all tied to his election, period.
No, and it was not veiled. You know, there was a concerted effort by conservatives across this country. They planned to do everything they could. That's why redistricting is such a critical issue, just like the vote suppression issue. They're wrapped together because they set out to ensure that they could keep off the rolls as many Democratic voters as possible. And that, as Kristen said, directly affects the elderly, the poor, people of color. It is ridiculous when we have a country in this last election where half of us decided not to show up at the polls, that what we think we're supposed to be worried about is voter fraud. And I really do believe it's a level of ignorance in our country where people just don't understand how much of an issue this still is today.
So one thing that we can do in our community, and actually the AFL-CIO and the Lawyers Committee and many other organizations in DC are actually working on, how do we ensure that Black folks are serving as poll monitors, as poll workers. The reason why this is able to happen is oftentimes you have, you know, older people that might be retired. They've been working as poll workers and poll monitors for quite some time. That works in places like where I live in Maryland, but perhaps in a place like Georgia or Texas where they have a history, excuse me, of racism. It's something that we have to work on in the Black community.
All right, then. Kristen, keep fighting the fight.
Thank you.
All right.
A peaceful protest turned deadly. 37-year-old Black man was shot and killed by Baton Rouge police. His hands are in the air, and you still get shot by the cops.
Oh my God, please don't tell me he's dead.
We're not gonna let hate define us.
Race is a big part of this.
If truly all lives matter, then all lives need to matter equally. What we require is action. What we require is accountability. We understand that Black lives do matter, and we will keep focused on this issue.
NewsOne Now, every weekday morning at 7 on TV1.